there's a particular kind of torture that comes not from what happens, but from what almost happens. From being so close to something you desperately want that you can feel its warmth, hear its breathing, sense every movement, but knowing you absolutely cannot have it. Ethan Miller had spent 3 years perfecting the art of wanting something he couldn't touch, and tonight, in a cabin with only one bed and a woman who had no idea how he felt, that torture was about to become unbearable. If this story resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment where you're listening from, and if you feel it was worth it, consider becoming a member for early access to upcoming stories. Your support means everything. The mountain air was crisp, almost sharp, carrying the scent of pine and the promise of snow. Ethan stood on the cabin's small porch, gripping the railing harder than necessary, trying to convince himself this was fine. Everything was fine. It was just one night. One night in a remote cabin with Maya Chen, his best friend, his colleague, the woman he'd been in love with since the day she walked into the architecture firm with coffee stains on her portfolio and apologized to a plant she'd bumped into. One bed. The words echoed in his mind like a taunt. The retreat coordinator had been mortified. There's been a mix-up with the reservations. I'm so sorry. Every other cabin is full because of the conference. You two were registered separately, but somehow. She'd trailed off, wringing her hands, looking between them with desperate eyes. It's just for tonight. Tomorrow, we'll have proper accommodations. Maya had laughed it off immediately. It's fine. We're adults. Right, Ethan? And what could he say? That sharing a bed with her would be the sweetest agony he'd ever endured? That he'd spent 3 years carefully maintaining the boundaries of friendship while wanting nothing more than to cross every single one? That the thought of lying next to her, feeling the warmth of her body, breathing the same air, was going to drive him absolutely insane? So he'd smiled and nodded and said, "Of course. No problem." Now, standing in the cold, he wondered if he could just sleep out here. Freeze to death. That would solve everything. The door opened behind him. "Ethan, you're going to catch pneumonia. Come inside." Maya's voice was warm, concerned, completely oblivious to the war raging inside him. He turned, and his breath caught the way it always did when he looked at her. She'd changed into sleep clothes, soft cotton pants, and an oversized sweater that slipped off one shoulder. Her long black hair was down, falling in waves past her shoulders instead of the usual professional bun. She looked comfortable, relaxed, beautiful in that effortless way that made his chest ache. "I'm fine," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "Just needed some air." She tilted her head, studying him with those dark, intelligent eyes that saw too much. "You've been weird since we got here. Are you really that uncomfortable sharing a space with me?" "Yes," he thought, "but not for the reasons you think. I'm just tired," he lied. "Long drive." She didn't look convinced, but didn't push. "Come on. I found extra blankets. We can build a pillow wall if it makes you feel better." A pillow wall, as if that would help, as if anything could create enough distance between them when they'd be sharing the same mattress. Ethan followed her inside, closing the door against the cold. The cabin was small but well-appointed, warm wood everywhere, a stone fireplace crackling with fresh logs, large windows that during the day probably offered stunning mountain views. And there, dominating the main room, was the bed. A queen-size bed with a thick down comforter and what looked like impossibly soft pillows. Just one bed in the entire cabin, because apparently this was designed as a romantic getaway, not a corporate retreat overflow. Maya was already arranging pillows down the center of the mattress with the focused determination she brought to everything. There. the Great Wall of Pillows. You stay on your side, I stay on mine, and we both get a good night's sleep. Ethan watched her, this woman who had no idea that he knew exactly how she took her coffee, that he'd memorized the constellation of freckles on her left arm, that he volunteered for every project she was on just to spend more time near her, that he'd turned down dates and opportunities and an entire job offer in another city because leaving her felt impossible. "You're staring," she said, not looking at him as she fluffed a pillow. "Sorry," he cleared his throat, running a hand through his dark hair. I'll take the left side. Actually, I need the left side. I can't sleep on the right." "Since when?" "Since always. You've just never noticed." She said it teasingly, but there was something in her voice he couldn't quite identify. "Fine. Right side it is." He grabbed his bag and headed to the small bathroom, needing distance, needing to get his thoughts under control. In the mirror, he looked the same as always. Tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of build that came from years of hiking and climbing, not from a gym. Dark eyes under heavy brows, a jaw that always seemed to need a shave, hair that fell across his forehead no matter how many times he pushed it back. Nothing special. Nothing that would make Maya Chen look at him as anything other than her friend, her colleague, her safe person. When he emerged in sleep pants and a t-shirt, Maya was already in bed, tucked under the covers on her side, the pillow wall between them looking ridiculously inadequate. She'd left the bedside lamp on for him. The firelight danced across her face, making her skin glow. "Thanks," he said quietly, sliding under the covers on his side. He was immediately aware of everything. The slight dip of the mattress toward the center, the scent of her shampoo, something floral and clean, the sound of her breathing, the warmth radiating from her body despite the pillows between them. "This is nice," Maya said into the darkness. "The cabin, I mean. Very cozy." "Yeah, cozy." There was a long silence. Ethan stared at the ceiling, every muscle tense, hyper-aware of the few feet separating them. "Can I ask you something?" Maya's voice was soft. "Sure. Why did you really seem so uncomfortable about this? We've worked late nights together, grabbed early breakfasts, spent entire weekends on project deadlines. Why is sharing a cabin such a big deal?" Because those times had escape routes, he thought. Because he could always leave, could always put physical distance between them when the wanting got too intense. Because he'd never had to lie next to her in the dark and pretend his heart wasn't racing. "It's not," he lied. "Just didn't want to make you uncomfortable." She was quiet for a moment. "You never make me uncomfortable, Ethan. You're the person I'm most comfortable with." The words were meant to be reassuring. Instead, they felt like a knife, because comfortable meant safe. Comfortable meant friend. Comfortable meant she'd never looked at him and felt what he felt every single time he saw her. "I'm glad," he managed. "We should sleep. Big day tomorrow. More networking sessions." Maya groaned. "Don't remind me. I already used up my small talk quota for the month." He smiled despite himself. "You did corner that poor architect from Seattle and talk about sustainable materials for 45 minutes. He was interested. He was trapped." She laughed, and the sound filled the cabin, warm and genuine. And Ethan felt his resolve weakening already. This was going to be the longest night of his life. They fell silent again, but sleep felt impossible. He could hear her shifting, adjusting, the rustle of sheets, and the soft sound of her breathing. Then, "I'm cold." "What?" Maya's voice was small. "I know the fire's going, but I'm still cold." "Do you think there are more blankets?" Ethan sat up, looking around. "I can check the closet." He found another quilt and brought it to her side, laying it carefully over her covers, trying not to notice the way she looked up at him, her hair spread across the pillow, her eyes soft in the low light. "Better?" "Better." Thank you. He returned to his side, settled back in, stared at the ceiling, tried not to think about how easy it would be to reach across those pillows and stop. 10 minutes passed, maybe 15. Then, Ethan? Yeah. I'm still cold. He exhaled slowly. There's not really anything else I can. I know this is weird, she interrupted, but could we maybe get rid of some of these pillows? Share body heat? It's just practical. There's nothing weird about it. Everything about it was weird. Everything about it was dangerous. But what could he say? She was cold. He was supposed to be her friend. Friends helped each other. Sure, he heard himself say, if it'll help. Maya immediately started moving pillows, creating a gap in the wall between them. Practical, she said again, as if saying it enough times would make it true. Just practical. Ethan helped remove the remaining pillows, his hands careful not to touch hers as they worked. Each pillow that disappeared felt like a protective barrier falling away, leaving him more exposed, more vulnerable. When the last one was gone, there was nothing between them but air and intention, and 3 years of unspoken feelings. Maya shifted closer, and Ethan felt his entire body go rigid. She was right there, maybe a foot away, close enough that he could see the individual lashes framing her eyes, the slight flush on her cheeks from the warmth of the blankets. This is better, she said softly. Warmer already. Ethan couldn't speak. His throat had gone dry. He managed a small nod, not trusting his voice. She was wearing that oversized sweater, and it had slipped further off her shoulder, revealing the smooth skin of her collarbone. He forced his gaze back to the ceiling, counting the wooden beams, trying to remember the periodic table, anything to distract himself from the overwhelming awareness of her presence. You're so tense, Maya observed. I can practically feel it from here. Relax. I don't bite. That was the problem. He wanted her to. He wanted to know what her teeth would feel like against his skin, wanted to taste her lips, wanted to pull her close and find out if the reality of holding her could possibly live up to the fantasy he'd built over 3 years. Just trying to respect boundaries, he said carefully. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, what boundaries? We're friends. Friends can share body heat without it being weird. She was right. Objectively, she was right. Friends could do this. Normal friends who didn't harbor secret feelings and elaborate fantasies. Friends who could be close without every nerve ending catching fire. He wasn't one of those friends. Move closer, she said. You're like a radiator. I know you run hot. How did she know that? Had she noticed? Had she paid attention to him the way he paid attention to her? The thought was dangerous, hopeful, terrifying. Ethan shifted slightly closer, and Maya immediately closed the remaining distance, tucking herself against his side like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her head found his shoulder, her arm draped across his chest, her leg. God, her leg hooked over his, and Ethan forgot how to breathe. Is this okay? She asked, her breath warm against his neck. He could feel her heartbeat against his ribs. Could smell that floral shampoo mixed with something uniquely her. Could feel the soft weight of her body pressed along his side. Okay was such an inadequate word for what this was. Fine, he managed, his voice strained. You're really warm. Told you. They lay there in the firelight, and Ethan tried desperately to think unsexy thoughts. Tax codes, structural engineering calculations, the retirement plan options the firm offered. Anything but the fact that Maya Chen was in his arms. Soft and warm and trusting, completely unaware that he was dying inside. Your heart is racing, she murmured against his chest. Is it? She shifted slightly, and the movement pressed her more firmly against him. Her hand was on his chest now, right over his heart, feeling every too fast beat. Are you sure you're okay with this? Because we can go back to the pillows if… No. The word came out too quickly, too forcefully. He cleared his throat. I mean, this is fine. You were cold. It's been a long day. Maya propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him, and Ethan's breath caught. She was so close. Her hair fell like a curtain around them, creating an intimate space that felt separate from the rest of the world. Her dark eyes searched his face, looking for something. You're lying, she said softly. You do that thing with your jaw when you lie. Clench it right here. She touched his jaw, her fingers cool and soft against his skin, and Ethan felt the touch everywhere. His entire body was hyper-aware, every nerve ending focused on the points where they connected. I'm not lying, he said, but his voice betrayed him, rough and low. Ethan. The way she said his name, there was something different in it, something he'd never heard before. What? Tell me the truth. Why are you so uncomfortable? He could lie again, should lie again. But she was touching his face, looking at him like he mattered, like she really wanted to know. And 3 years of careful control was fracturing under the weight of her nearness. Because, he started, then stopped. Because this is torture. Her fingers stilled on his jaw. What? Being this close to you, he continued, the words coming now like a dam breaking. Lying here with you, feeling you against me, pretending I don't want. He stopped himself, but it was too late. The truth was out there, hanging between them. Pretending you don't want what? Maya's voice was barely a whisper, but her eyes were intense, searching. Ethan closed his eyes, unable to look at her. This was it. The moment that would either change everything or destroy everything. 3 years of friendship was about to end because he couldn't control himself for one night. You, he admitted, opening his eyes to meet hers. I want you. I've wanted you since the day we met, and lying here pretending I don't is the hardest thing I've ever done. The silence that followed felt infinite. Maya's expression was unreadable, her hand still on his face, her body still pressed against his. Ethan waited for her to pull away, to apologize, to say she didn't feel the same way, that she valued their friendship, that she'd never thought of him like that. Instead, she said, 10 minutes. What? You promised yourself you'd make it through the night without touching me, without crossing that line. Her voice was soft, but certain. I'm guessing you gave yourself until morning. How long did you actually last? He stared at her, confused, his heart hammering. I don't. 10 minutes, she repeated. We got rid of the pillows about 10 minutes ago, and now you're telling me you want me. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. Not a great track record for keeping promises, Ethan Miller. Wait. He tried to process what she was saying. Are you? Do you? Why do you think I suggested getting rid of the pillows? Maya asked, her thumb tracing his jawline. Why do you think I said I was cold, when there's a fire going and 3 blankets on this bed? Why do you think I volunteered to share this cabin when the coordinator offered to have you sleep in the conference center lounge? His mind was reeling. You volunteered? She nodded, her eyes never leaving his. I told them we'd be fine sharing, that we were close friends and it wouldn't be weird. But Ethan, I've been lying too. It is weird. It's incredibly weird because I've wanted to be close to you like this for so long, and I didn't know how to tell you without risking what we have. You've wanted. He couldn't finish the sentence. His brain had short-circuited. Yes, she said simply. I've wanted. So when the universe handed me an excuse to be in the same bed as you, I took it. I'm not actually that cold. Ethan felt like the world had tilted. 3 years. 3 years of careful distance and professional boundaries, and pretending he didn't feel what he felt. And she'd been feeling it too? "Why didn't you say something?" he asked. "Why didn't you?" she countered. "Because I didn't want to lose you." Same. They stared at each other, both processing this revelation, both afraid to move first. Then Maya leaned down, slowly, giving him time to pull away, time to stop this. But stopping was the last thing Ethan wanted. When her lips touched his, soft and questioning, he forgot every reason he'd ever had for keeping his distance. He forgot about professional boundaries and friendship complications and the risk of ruining everything. All he knew was that Maya was kissing him, and it felt like coming home. His hand came up to cup the back of her head, fingers threading through her hair, and he kissed her back with 3 years of wanting. She made a small sound against his mouth, and it undid him completely. His other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and she came willingly, eagerly, her body fitting against his like she was made for this. The kiss deepened, and Ethan tasted her, learned her, memorized every sigh and movement. She kissed like she did everything else, with complete focus and passion, holding nothing back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maya rested her forehead against his. "So much for keeping our promise," she whispered. "What promise?" "Not to touch each other." "We lasted, 10 minutes?" Ethan's laugh was breathless. "Best broken promise of my life." "Mine too." She kissed him again, shorter this time, sweet. "But we should probably talk about this." "In the morning," Ethan said, pulling her back down. "Right now I just want to—" "What?" "Hold you. Kiss you. Make up for 3 years of not doing either." Maya smiled against his lips, and Ethan felt the expression like warmth spreading through his chest. 3 years, she murmured. "We wasted so much time." "We were being careful," he said, his hand tracing slow patterns on her back through the soft sweater. "Protecting what we had." "And what do we have now?" "Everything," he said. "If you want it." She pulled back just enough to look at him, her eyes serious despite the smile still playing at her lips. "I want it. I want you. I've wanted you through every late night at the office, every coffee run, every time you stayed late to help me finish a project. I've wanted you through meetings and presentations and that terrible firm holiday party, where you saved me from Gary's awful mistletoe ambush." Ethan remembered that party, remembered the surge of possessiveness he'd felt watching Gary corner her, the satisfaction of interrupting with a convenient excuse about an urgent client call. He'd told himself he was just being a good friend. He'd been lying. "I wanted to punch Gary that night," he admitted. Maya's eyebrows rose. "Really? Really? You were wearing that dark green dress, and you looked—" He stopped, shaking his head. "I spent the whole night watching you and hating that I had no right to." "You had every right to," she said softly. "I wore that dress hoping you'd notice." The revelation sent heat through him. "You were trying to get my attention?" "Maybe. Did it work?" "You know it did. You couldn't stop staring. I thought I was being subtle. Ethan, you're terrible at being subtle. You look at me like what? Like I'm the only person in the room. Like you're memorizing me. Like you." She paused, suddenly shy. "Like you want to touch me." "I do," he said, his voice low. "Always. Then touch me." It wasn't a demand. It was an invitation, soft and open and trusting. Ethan's hand slid from her back to her waist, feeling the curve of her body through the fabric. Maya's breath hitched, and the sound went straight through him. "Is this okay?" he asked. "More than okay," she breathed. "Don't stop." His fingers found the hem of her sweater, the place where it had ridden up slightly, revealing a strip of skin. He touched there, just his fingertips against her waist, and felt her shiver. "You're not cold anymore," he observed. No, she agreed. Definitely not cold. She kissed him again, and this time there was more heat in it, more urgency. Her hands explored his shoulders, his chest, mapping him the way he'd dreamed of mapping her. When she tugged at his shirt, he helped her remove it, and then her hands were on his bare skin, and the sensation was overwhelming. God, Ethan, she whispered. You have no idea how long I've wanted to touch you like this. Tell me. Every time you'd roll up your sleeves at work, every time you'd run your hand through your hair when you were frustrated, every time you'd… She paused, her cheeks flushing. Every time you'd what? Every time you'd stretch and your shirt would ride up. I'd catch myself staring and have to pretend I was looking at something else. Ethan groaned. You're killing me. Good. You've been killing me for 3 years. Fair's fair. Her fingers traced the lines of his chest, his shoulders, learning him. He let her explore, watching her face, the way her eyes darkened with want, the way her lips parted slightly when she touched a particularly sensitive spot. You're beautiful, he said. Maya laughed softly. That's my line. You're the beautiful one. Have you seen yourself? Every day. And every day I see someone who's too good for me. Ethan. No, let me say this. He cupped her face, making her look at him. You're brilliant. You're talented. You're kind and funny, and you light up every room you walk into. I spent 3 years thinking I had no chance with you. I spent 3 years thinking the same about you, she said. You're everyone's favorite at the firm. You're the one clients request by name. You're the one who… Who what? Who makes me feel safe, she finished quietly. Who makes me feel seen? Who looks at me like I matter? You do matter. You matter more than anything. The words hung between them, weighted with significance. This wasn't just attraction. This wasn't just 3 years of physical wanting. This was something deeper, something that had been building through every shared moment, every conversation, every time they'd chosen each other's company over anyone else's. Maya kissed him again, and it felt different now. Less frantic, more meaningful, like a promise being made and accepted. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. I'm going to say something that might scare you, she warned. Say it anyway. I think I'm in love with you. I think I have been for a long time. Ethan's heart stopped, then started again. Faster. That doesn't scare me. It doesn't. No, because I know I'm in love with you. I have been since the day you apologized to that plant. She laughed, the sound surprised and delighted. I can't believe you remember that. I remember everything about that day. You were wearing a blue blouse. You had your hair in a bun, but pieces kept falling out. You had 3 different pens behind your ear. You were nervous and brilliant and completely yourself, and I took one look at you and thought, that's her. That's the one. Maya's eyes were shining now, and Ethan realized she was crying. Happy tears, she said quickly, reading his concerned expression. Very happy tears. Come here, he said, pulling her close. She settled against him, her head on his chest, her body aligned with his. This time there was no hesitation, no careful distance. She belonged there, and they both knew it. We're going to have to tell people at work, she said after a while. HR has rules about… I don't care, Ethan interrupted. I'll quit if I have to. Don't be dramatic. I won't let you quit. We'll figure it out. We'll disclose it properly. Follow the rules. Just what? Just don't ask me to hide this. Don't ask me to go back to pretending you're just my colleague, just my friend. I can't do that anymore. I won't ask that, she promised. I want everyone to know. I want to walk into work holding your hand. I want to have lunch together without pretending it's just a professional meeting. I want everything, he finished. Yes, everything. They fell into comfortable silence, holding each other, the fire crackling softly in the background. Outside, the first snow had started to fall, visible through the large windows, but inside the cabin was warm, perfect, complete. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said eventually. "Anything. That job offer you turned down last year, the one in San Francisco. How did you know about that?" "Ethan, I handle project assignments. I see everything that crosses the senior partners' desks. They were devastated when you said no. Everyone was talking about what could make you refuse such an incredible opportunity." He was quiet for a moment, then said, You're what made me refuse. The job was amazing. The money was better. The opportunities were endless. And I didn't care about any of it because it meant leaving you." Maya pushed up to look at him. "You turned down your dream job for me? For the chance to be near you. Even if all I could ever be was your friend, it was better than being across the country without you." She shook her head, seemingly at a loss for words. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever done for me. It was selfish," he said. "Keeping myself close to you when I thought I could never have you." "It was loving me," she corrected. "That's what love looks like. Sacrifice. Choosing someone's presence over your own advancement." "Ethan, What? I need you to know that I would never ask you to make that choice again. If opportunities come, we'll face them together. We'll figure out what's best for both of us, not just you sacrificing for me." "Deal," he said. "Together." "Together," she repeated, like she was testing the word. "I like the sound of that." Ethan pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair. "So do I. 3 years I've been alone in this feeling." Now you're not alone in anything," she finished. "Now we're in this together." The fire popped and crackled, sending dancing shadows across the cabin walls. Snow fell steadily outside, creating a cocoon of white around them, isolating them from the rest of the world in the best possible way. Tomorrow they'd have to return to reality, to the conference, to decisions about how to navigate this new territory. But tonight was theirs. "Tell me something," Maya said, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his chest. "Something I don't know about you. There's not much you don't know." "Try anyway." Ethan thought for a moment. "Every morning when you get to the office, you do this thing where you touch the door frame before you walk in. Like a little ritual. I noticed it maybe a month after you started, and I've watched you do it every single day since. I never told you, because I didn't want you to become self-conscious about it. But I love it. I love that you have these small, private rituals. I love watching you be yourself when you think no one's paying attention." Maya was quiet, and when she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "I do that because the first day I started, I was so nervous I thought I might turn around and leave. So I touched the door frame and told myself, you can do this. Just walk through this door. And it worked. So I kept doing it, like a promise to myself that I belong there." "You do belong there," Ethan said firmly. "You're one of the best architects I've ever worked with. Now you tell me something you've never told anyone." He felt her smile against his chest. "Sometimes when we're in meetings, and someone's being particularly difficult or boring, I imagine what it would be like to kiss you. Right there in the conference room, in front of everyone. Just stand up, walk over to where you're sitting, and kiss you until everyone stops talking." Ethan's breath caught. "How often is sometimes? More often than I should admit. Like every meeting often?" She laughed. "Maybe not every meeting, but a lot of them, particularly the budget meetings." "Those are the worst." "They are," he agreed. "Though they're going to be a lot more interesting now if I know you're thinking about kissing me. That could be dangerous for my professional reputation." Your professional reputation will be fine. Mine, however. She propped herself up to look at him. What about it? I'm going to be completely obvious now. I've spent 3 years learning how to hide what I feel. I don't know how to do that anymore. So don't, Ethan said. Don't hide. Let everyone see. But what if? What if what? What if people think I'm unprofessional? What if they think I'm only successful because of you? What if they reduce everything I've accomplished to being your girlfriend? Ethan's expression went serious. Then they're idiots who don't know you at all. Maya, you were brilliant before you met me. You'll be brilliant regardless of me. Anyone who can't see that isn't worth your concern. She studied his face, then nodded slowly. You're right. I know you're right. It's just scary. Change is always scary, but we'll handle it together. Remember? Together, she echoed, settling back against him. I could get used to having a partner in this. You already have one. You've had one for 3 years. I was just waiting for you to realize it. The confession made her smile. All this time, he confirmed. Every late night, every early morning, every crisis and triumph. I was there because I wanted to be. Because being near you was better than being anywhere else. Maya's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd said something sooner. We were both protecting ourselves, Ethan said, both afraid of losing what we had. There's no shame in that. No, she agreed, but I'm done being afraid. Good. So am I. They kissed again, slow and deep, and Ethan felt the last of his careful control dissolving. For 3 years he'd maintained distance, had been the perfect gentleman, had never let himself take what he wanted. But Maya was in his arms now, warm and willing and his, and restraint felt impossible. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maya's eyes were dark with want. Stay with me tonight, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere, he promised. No, I mean, she paused, suddenly shy. I mean, really stay with me. Be with me. Completely. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. We don't have to rush this. I know We've waited 3 years, Ethan. I don't want to wait anymore. Do you? No, he admitted. God, no. Then don't make me wait, she said, and kissed him. This kiss was different from the others. This one held promise and permission, and 3 years of wanting finally unleashed. Ethan's hands found the hem of her sweater again, and this time, when he touched her skin, there was no hesitation. Maya arched into his touch, her own hands exploring with growing confidence. The oversized sweater came off slowly, reverently, and Ethan took his time learning the landscape of her body. Every curve, every soft place, every spot that made her gasp or sigh. She was perfect, more beautiful than he'd imagined, and he'd imagined this moment countless times. You're staring again, Maya said, but she didn't sound self-conscious. She sounded pleased. I could stare at you forever, and it wouldn't be long enough. That's very smooth. I'm serious. He struggled for words. You're everything. Show me, she challenged softly. Show me I'm everything. So he did. He showed her with his hands, mapping every inch of her skin. He showed her with his lips, tasting the hollow of her throat, the curve of her shoulder, the soft skin of her inner wrist, where her pulse fluttered. He showed her with words, whispered against her skin, telling her she was beautiful, telling her he loved her, telling her all the things he'd kept locked inside for 3 years. Maya responded in kind, her touch growing bolder, her own words of affection and desire mixing with his. They learned each other slowly, thoroughly, building heat with every kiss, every caress, every shared breath. When Maya's hands found the waistband of his pants, her eyes met his, questioning. "Yes," he said. "Anything. Everything. Yes." Clothing disappeared gradually, no rushing, just steady revelation. And with each piece removed, with each new expanse of skin exposed, Ethan fell more deeply in love. This wasn't just physical, though the physical was overwhelming. This was emotional, spiritual. The merging of two people who'd been circling each other for years, finally coming together. Maya was trembling slightly when they were finally skin to skin. Nothing between them but air and intention. "From cold?" he asked, concerned. "From wanting you so badly I can barely breathe. That makes two of us." He kissed her deeply, rolling them so she was beneath him, his weight carefully distributed so as not to crush her. She wrapped her arms around his neck, her legs around his waist, pulling him closer. "Please," she whispered against his mouth. "Ethan, please." "I've got you," he promised. "I've got you." And he did. He had her in his arms, in his heart, in his life. Finally, completely, irrevocably his. When they finally came together, it felt like every moment of the past 3 years had been leading to this. Every conversation, every shared smile, every moment of longing. This was what they'd been building toward without even knowing it. Maya gasped his name, her fingers digging into his shoulders, and Ethan had to pause, had to breathe, had to remind himself to go slowly, to make this good for her. But Maya had other ideas. "Don't hold back," she said. "I want all of you." "Are you sure?" "Stop asking me if I'm sure." "I'm sure. I've been sure for 3 years. Just—" She pulled him down to kiss him. "Just love me." "I do," he said against her lips. "I love you so much. Then show me." So he did. The cabin filled with the sounds of their connection, soft gasps and whispered names mixing with the crackle of the fire. Ethan moved with deliberate slowness, watching Maya's face, learning what she liked, what made her sigh, what made her arch into him with desperate urgency. She was responsive and vocal, telling him what felt good, guiding his hands, his mouth, meeting him with equal passion. There was no awkwardness between them, no fumbling uncertainty. This was 3 years of friendship translating into physical intimacy, and it felt natural, right? Like they'd been made to fit together exactly this way. Maya's hands explored his back, his shoulders, her nails leaving gentle trails across his skin that made him shudder. When she whispered his name like a prayer, Ethan felt something inside him break open, all the careful control he'd maintained for so long shattering completely. He loved her. God, he loved her so much it physically hurt. And now he could show her, could pour all that feeling into every touch, every kiss, every movement. The rhythm between them built gradually, naturally, like a conversation they'd been having all along, but had never spoken aloud. Maya matched him perfectly, understanding instinctively what he needed, responding with her own needs, creating something between them that was uniquely theirs. When she came apart in his arms, gasping his name, Ethan watched her face, memorizing every expression, every beautiful moment of her pleasure. And when his own release followed, triggered by the feeling of her tightening around him, by the sound of his name on her lips, it felt like coming home. They stayed tangled together afterward, neither willing to separate, both catching their breath in the warm cocoon of blankets and firelight. Ethan's hand stroked her hair, while Maya's fingers traced lazy patterns on his chest, both of them basking in the aftermath of finally being together. "That was," Maya started, then paused. "I don't even have words." "Neither do I," Ethan admitted. "But if I did, they'd probably be something like life-changing, earth-shattering. And I can't believe we waited 3 years for that." Maya laughed softly, the sound vibrating against his chest. "We were idiots, complete idiots. But we're not anymore? No, he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Now we're just two people who are madly in love and happen to work together. We'll figure out the details tomorrow. Tomorrow, she agreed. But Ethan. Yeah? I don't regret waiting. I don't regret the 3 years. Because it means I know you. I know your mind, your heart, your soul. The physical part is incredible, but it's incredible because it's you. Because I love everything about you, not just your body. The words settled over him like a blessing. That's, he started, his voice rough with emotion. That's exactly how I feel. Like I've been loving all of you for so long that getting to love you like this, it's just the final piece falling into place. Exactly, she whispered. They drifted for a while, not quite sleeping but not quite awake, just existing in perfect contentment. The fire had burned lower, casting softer shadows, and the snow outside had thickened, creating a white wall of privacy around their cabin. Eventually, Maya stirred, propping herself up to look at him. Can I tell you something embarrassing? Always. Remember that team-building exercise last year? The one where we had to share fun facts about ourselves? Of course. You said your fun fact was that you could recite all the countries in alphabetical order. That wasn't my original fun fact. No. No, my original fun fact was going to be that I was in love with my colleague Ethan Miller, but I thought that might make the exercise awkward. Ethan's eyes widened. You almost said that? In front of everyone? I chickened out at the last second. Went with the geography thing instead. But God, Ethan, I wanted to. I wanted everyone to know. I'm glad you didn't, he said, though he was smiling. That would have been awkward. What would you have said if I had? Ethan considered. Probably something like, what a coincidence. I'm in love with my colleague Maya Chen. And then everyone would have stared at us. And then Gary would have made a comment about workplace romance. And then HR would have had a field day. Exactly why I went with geography, she said. But now we can tell them properly, he finished. When we're ready. Together. There's that word again. Get used to it. I plan to. She kissed him softly, then settled back against him. The storm outside had intensified, wind rattling the windows, but inside they were warm and safe and completely at peace. Ethan. I'm really glad there was only one bed. Best cabin mix-up in the history of cabin mix-ups. Do you think it was actually a mix-up? Maya asked, thoughtfully. Or do you think the retreat coordinator saw two people obviously in love with each other and decided to help fate along? Ethan considered this. You think she deliberately put us together? I think she took one look at how we interacted when we checked in, saw an opportunity and seized it. We should send her a thank you card, maybe a gift basket. Maybe we should name our first child after her, Maya said, then froze. I mean, not that I wasn't suggesting. Ethan's heart was racing again, but this time with hope rather than nervousness. What was her name? What? The retreat coordinator. What was her name? Maya paused, thinking. Jennifer? Jennifer Miller has a nice ring to it. Or Jennifer Chen. Or Jennifer Miller Chen. We have time to figure it out. Maya was staring at him now, her eyes wide. Are you seriously discussing baby names right now? Why not? We've wasted enough time not being together. I don't want to waste any more time not talking about futures and possibilities. But we've been together for, she glanced at the clock, 3 hours. And I've been in love with you for 3 years. That's 1,000 days. I think that buys me the right to think about forever. Maya's eyes were bright with tears again. You really want that? Forever with me? I really want that. I want everything with you. Every morning, every night, every boring Tuesday, and exciting Friday. I want to come home to you. I want to build a life with you. I want to figure out whose apartment we're keeping and argue about whether we need a dining table that seats 8. I want it all." "You're insane," she said, but she was smiling. "Insane about you," he agreed. "But Maya, I need you to know I'm serious. This isn't just post-coital romance talking. This is me telling you that I've thought about this for years. I've imagined every detail of a life with you, and now that I can actually have it, I'm not interested in taking it slow or playing it cool. I'm all in." She was quiet for a long moment, and Ethan's heart pounded, wondering if he'd gone too far, said too much too soon. Then Maya said, "I want the apartment with better natural light because I need it for my drafting work. Your place has that amazing kitchen, though. We could keep that." "We could get a new place," Ethan suggested. "Something that's ours. Not mine or yours, but ours." "I like that," she said softly. "And I want a real dining table that seats 8 because I want to have dinner parties. I want to invite friends over and cook together and have you tell terrible jokes that somehow everyone laughs at anyway." He grinned. "My jokes aren't terrible. They're punny." "They're terrible," she corrected. "But I love them. I love that you think you're funny. I love that you laugh at your own jokes. I love everything about you, even the terrible puns. Especially the terrible puns. Okay, maybe not especially. But I accept them as part of the package, the Ethan package, the complete Ethan experience. Lucky you," he said, pulling her closer. "Getting the full experience. Luckiest person alive," she confirmed. "And Ethan?" "Yeah? I'm all in too. Everything you said. All the dreams and plans and futures. I want them all. With you. Only with you." They sealed the promise with another kiss, this one tender and full of unspoken vows. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but neither of them cared. They had everything they needed right here in this cabin, with one bed and a broken promise that had led to the best decision of their lives. Eventually, exhaustion began to creep in, the combination of emotional revelation and physical exertion catching up with them both. Maya yawned, trying to hide it, and Ethan smiled. "Tired?" "Maybe a little." "It's been a big night. Biggest night of my life," he said. "Mine too." "Sleep," he said softly. "We have plenty of time to talk more tomorrow, and every day after that." "And every day after that," she agreed. "But Ethan, I don't want to move. I like being exactly where I am." "Then don't move. Stay right here." She nestled closer, if that was even possible, her body perfectly aligned with his. "This is perfect. You're perfect. We're perfect together," he corrected. "Much better when it's we. Always better when it's we." Maya's breathing began to slow, evening out into the rhythm of approaching sleep. Ethan held her, watching the firelight play across her face, still barely believing this was real. 3 years of longing. 3 years of carefully maintained distance. 3 years of thinking he could never have this. And now she was in his arms, in his heart, in his life. Forever. Just as he thought she'd fallen asleep, Maya murmured, "Ethan, I'm here. Thank you for breaking your promise, for only lasting 10 minutes, for telling me the truth. Thank you for making it impossible to keep that promise," he said, "for getting rid of the pillows, for saying you were cold, for being brave enough to take a chance." "We're both pretty brave," she said sleepily. "Or pretty stupid. Hard to tell which. Little bit of both, probably." She was quiet for a moment then. "Love you. I love you too. So much." Her breathing deepened, and this time Ethan knew she'd actually fallen asleep. He continued to hold her, not ready to sleep himself, wanting to savor this moment. The weight of her in his arms, the sound of her breathing, the smell of her hair, the perfect fit of her body against his. All of it was everything he'd dreamed of, and more. The fire was dying now, just embers glowing softly, but the cabin stayed warm. Snow continued to fall outside, piling up on the windowsills, creating a white wonderland that would greet them in the morning. Ethan thought about that morning, about waking up with Maya still in his arms, about the conference they'd have to attend, about the conversations they'd need to have about work and logistics and how to navigate this new reality. But none of it worried him. They'd figure it out together. That was the promise they'd made, and unlike the promise not to touch each other, this was one they'd keep. His eyes grew heavy, the combination of warmth and contentment and Maya's steady breathing lulling him toward sleep. Just before he drifted off, he pressed a kiss to her hair and whispered, "Best broken promise ever." The morning came softly, sunlight filtering through the snow-covered windows, creating a diffused glow that filled the cabin with gentle light. Ethan woke first, his internal clock still set to his usual early rising time despite the late night. For a moment, he was disoriented, unsure where he was or why everything felt different. Then he felt the weight in his arms and remembered. Maya. Maya was here, curled against him, her hair spread across his chest, one hand resting over his heart. It hadn't been a dream. She'd really told him she loved him. They'd really spent the night together. Everything had really changed. He stayed still, not wanting to wake her, just watching her sleep. Her face was peaceful, relaxed, a small smile playing at her lips, like she was having a good dream. He hoped it was about them, hoped she was as happy in sleep as he was in waking. After a few minutes, Maya stirred, her hand moving slightly on his chest before her eyes fluttered open. When she saw him watching her, her smile widened. "Morning," she said, her voice still rough with sleep. "Morning. Beautiful." "Oh God," she groaned, hiding her face against his chest. "I probably have terrible bedhead and morning breath. Don't care." She peeked up at him. "No? Not even a little bit. You're beautiful always, even first thing in the morning. Especially first thing in the morning, because this is you, without armor, without the professional mask. Just Maya. And I love just Maya." She kissed his chest, right over his heart. "You're very sweet for someone who should be running away from my morning breath. Never running away from you again. Promise. Promise." They lay there in comfortable silence, both adjusting to the newness of waking up together, of being together without pretense or distance. Outside, the world was blanketed in fresh snow, pristine and beautiful, like the universe had decided to give them a clean slate. "What time is it?" Maya asked eventually. Ethan glanced at the clock on the nightstand. 8:30. "We have an hour before the first session." "An hour?" she mused. "What should we do with a whole hour? I can think of a few things." She raised her eyebrows. "Oh, really?" "Really." His hand slid down her back, pulling her closer. "We could stay in bed. That's one option. Or we could shower." "Together?" Ethan suggested. "Save water. Be environmentally conscious. Very noble of you. I'm a noble guy. You're a guy who wants to see me naked in the shower." "That too," he admitted. "Is it working?" Maya pretended to consider. "Well, I am very committed to environmental causes. That's what I thought." She kissed him. Morning breath be damned, and Ethan decided that waking up like this was something he could very happily do for the rest of his life. When they finally made it to the shower, it was less about actually getting clean, and more about the joy of touching each other without barriers, of learning each other in a new context. Maya's laughter echoed off the tile walls as Ethan tried to wash her hair and ended up getting soap in his own eyes. "Here, let me," she said, taking over, her fingers massaging his scalp in a way that was both soothing and arousing. "You're good at that. I used to wash my little sister's hair when we were kids. Learned to be thorough. I didn't know you had a sister. You never mentioned her." "We don't talk much anymore," Maya said, a shadow crossing her face. "She made some choices I didn't agree with. We grew apart. I'm sorry. It's okay. Or it will be. Maybe now that I have you, I'll have the courage to reach out again. Try to rebuild that bridge." "You should," Ethan encouraged. "Life's too short to let pride or hurt keep you from the people you love." "Like we almost did?" "Exactly like we almost did. 3 years we could have had this and didn't because we were both too afraid to speak up." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. I'll call her. After the conference." "Good." They finished showering and got dressed, Maya borrowing one of Ethan's shirts because it was closer than her suitcase and because she liked the way it smelled like him. Ethan watched her move around the cabin, so comfortable in his space, in his clothes, in his life, and felt his heart swell with love. "We should probably talk about today," Maya said as she attempted to tame her wet hair. "The conference. What we're going to tell people." "What do you want to tell them?" Ethan asked. "I don't know. I mean, we could keep it quiet for now. Not make a big announcement. Just let people figure it out naturally." "Or," he said, pulling her close, "we could show up holding hands and let everyone draw their own conclusions." "You'd be okay with that? Being public about it immediately?" "Maya, I've spent 3 years pretending not to be in love with you. I'm done pretending. If you're comfortable with it, I want everyone to know." She bit her lip, considering. "What about work? What about the rules? We'll go to HR first thing Monday morning. Disclose the relationship properly. Fill out whatever forms they need. Follow all the protocols. But today, at this conference, I just want to be with you. Publicly. Proudly." "Okay," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "Okay. Let's do it. Yeah? Yeah. Let's let everyone see. Let's make it real." "It is real," he said, cupping her face. "It's the most real thing I've ever felt." "Me too," she whispered. "Then let's not hide it." They walked to the conference center hand in hand, their feet crunching in the fresh snow. Other attendees were making their way to breakfast, and Ethan felt the curious glances, saw the double takes when people noticed their joined hands. Let them look. Let them wonder. Let them know that Maya Chen was his, and he was hers. The conference center's dining hall was already half full when they arrived, the scent of coffee and breakfast pastries filling the air. Ethan felt Maya's hand tighten slightly in his as they crossed the threshold, her only sign of nerves. He squeezed back, reassuring. Several heads turned as they entered. Ethan recognized colleagues from their firm, people from competing companies, industry professionals they'd worked with over the years. And he watched the realization dawn on face after face as they noticed the joined hands, the way Maya leaned into him slightly, the undeniable intimacy between them. Gary from accounting nearly dropped his coffee cup. Sarah from the design department's mouth fell open. Even the senior partner sitting at a corner table paused their conversation to stare. "Ethan," Maya whispered, her voice uncertain. "Should we?" "No," he said firmly. "We're not running away. We're getting coffee and breakfast, and we're sitting together, and we're not apologizing for being happy." "Okay," she said, and he heard the smile in her voice. "Okay." They got in line for the buffet, still holding hands, and Ethan was aware of the whisper starting around them. He didn't care. Let people talk. Let them speculate. The truth was better than anything they could imagine anyway. "So," a voice said beside them, and Ethan turned to see Richard, one of the senior partners from their firm. "This is new." "Yes, sir," Ethan said, not letting go of Maya's hand. "As of last night." Richard's expression was unreadable. You know there are protocols, disclosure forms, HR procedures. We plan to handle all of that Monday morning, Maya said, her voice steady and professional despite the situation. We wanted to be transparent, but we also wanted to have this weekend to figure things out before making it official. Richard studied them both for a long moment. Then, slowly, his stern expression cracked into a smile. About damn time. Both of them stared at him. What? Ethan managed. Richard laughed. The entire office has been watching you two dance around each other for 3 years. We had a betting pool going on when you'd finally figure it out. I just lost $50 because I bet on next quarter. You. Maya seemed at a loss for words. You all knew? Everyone knew, Richard confirmed. Except apparently the two of you. He clapped Ethan on the shoulder. Be happy. File your paperwork. And Miller, stop looking so terrified. You're not in trouble. Just don't let this affect the quality of your work. It won't, they said in unison, then looked at each other and laughed. Richard wandered off, and Ethan and Maya continued through the buffet line, both of them still processing. Everyone knew, Maya said. For 3 years? I feel like an idiot, Ethan admitted. All that time trying to be subtle. Apparently we were about as subtle as a brick. We really were terrible at hiding it, she agreed. But at least we don't have to anymore. They found a table by the windows, overlooking the snow-covered mountains, and sat down together. Other people gradually approached, offering congratulations, making jokes about the betting pool, sharing that they'd always thought Ethan and Maya would be good together. By the time breakfast was over, the news had spread through the entire conference. Ethan Miller and Maya Chen were together. Finally. The morning sessions were a blur. Ethan tried to focus on the presentations about sustainable building practices and innovative design solutions, but his mind kept drifting to Maya, sitting 3 rows ahead of him. Every time she glanced back at him and smiled, he felt his concentration shatter completely. During the break, she found him by the coffee station. This is harder than I thought, she admitted. What is? Trying to pay attention to work things when all I want to do is be near you, talk to you, touch you. Same, he said, pulling her close despite the people milling around them. I've sat through 3 presentations and couldn't tell you what any of them were about. She laughed. We're hopeless. Completely hopeless. Worth it, though. Absolutely worth it. They managed to make it through lunch, sitting with a group from their firm, who mercilessly teased them, but also seemed genuinely happy for them. The afternoon sessions were more of the same, attempting to focus while being hyper-aware of each other's presence in the room. When the day finally ended, they escaped back to their cabin, closing the door on the world, and finally being alone again. I thought today would never end, Maya said, pulling Ethan down onto the couch. Same. How many more hours until we can go home? Until we can just be us, without the conference and the networking and the having to wear pants? Maya suggested, and Ethan laughed. Exactly. The having to wear pants. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Ethan, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you scared? Of what? Of this. Of us. Of how fast everything is moving. He considered the question seriously. No. I mean, maybe I should be. We've known each other for 3 years, but we've only been together for less than 24 hours. Everything is happening really fast. But Maya, I've spent 3 years getting to know you. I know how you take your coffee. I know you bite your lip when you're concentrating. I know you reorganize your desk when you're stressed. I know your dreams and your fears and what makes you laugh. The only thing that's new is that now I get to kiss you. And that doesn't scare me. That feels like the most natural thing in the world. What about you? Maya took a breath. Honestly, I'm terrified. Of me? Of how much I feel. Of how completely you've taken over my heart in such a short time. of the fact that I can already imagine my entire future with you, and we've been together for one day. That terrifies me. But, and this is important, it terrifies me in a good way. Like standing at the edge of something amazing, and knowing that jumping is scary, but also necessary. And I want to jump. With you. Then we'll jump together, Ethan said, pulling her closer. And if it's scary, we'll be scared together. If it's amazing, we'll be amazed together. Whatever comes, we face it as a team. A team, she repeated. I like that. We're a good team. The best team. They spent the rest of the evening in the cabin, talking about everything and nothing, making dinner from the limited supplies available, laughing at Ethan's terrible cooking skills, feeding each other bites of food, stealing kisses between conversations. It felt domestic and comfortable and perfect. As night fell and the fire crackled back to life, they curled up on the couch together, Maya's head on Ethan's chest, his arms around her. Tell me about your family, she said. I've met your parents once at that firm event, but I don't really know much about them. What do you want to know? Everything. So he told her. About growing up in a small town in Oregon, about his dad, who was a carpenter, and taught him to love working with his hands, about his mom, who was a librarian, and taught him to love stories, about his younger brother, who was now a marine biologist in Florida and sent him pictures of weird fish at inappropriate hours, about the dog they had when he was growing up, a golden retriever named Biscuit, who was afraid of his own shadow. Maya listened to every word, asking questions, laughing at the funny stories, touching his hand when he talked about his grandmother who had passed away last year. Your turn, he said, when he'd exhausted his family history. Tell me about yours. So she did, about growing up in California, with parents who had immigrated from China and worked incredibly hard to give her opportunities, about the pressure to succeed, to be perfect, to honor their sacrifices, about her younger sister who had rebelled against all of that and was now traveling the world, barely keeping in touch, about the complicated love she had for her family, the gratitude mixed with frustration, mixed with guilt. I always felt like I had to be the good daughter, she said quietly, the one who followed the rules, who succeeded, who made them proud. And I wanted to make them proud. But sometimes I wonder if I chose architecture because I loved it, or because it was impressive enough to justify all their sacrifices. Do you love it? Ethan asked. Architecture? I do, she said after a moment. I really do. But I think I love it more now than I did when I started. When I started, it was about proving myself. Now it's about creating something beautiful, something that will last, something that matters. That's all that matters then, he said. Not why you started, but why you continue. She looked up at him, her eyes soft. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just in love with you and trying to say things that will make you smile. It's working. Good. They fell into comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who are completely at ease with each other. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft flakes drifting past the windows. Tomorrow we have to leave, Maya said eventually. Go back to reality. Yes. Are you ready for that? Ethan asked. Ready to face the office on Monday? Ready to file the disclosure forms and deal with whatever reactions we get? I'm ready for anything as long as you're there. Same. They stayed on the couch until the fire died down and the cabin grew cool, then moved to the bed, the one bed that had started everything. As they lay together in the darkness, Ethan thought about the strange path that had led them here, a cabin mix-up, a promise they'd both known they couldn't keep. 10 minutes of trying to maintain distance before giving in to 3 years of wanting. It was all so improbable, so unlikely, and yet it felt inevitable. Like every moment of the past 3 years had been leading them exactly here, to this cabin, to this bed, to each other. Maya? Yeah? I'm really glad there was only one bed. She laughed softly in the darkness. Me too. Best mistake that wasn't really a mistake ever made. Do you really think it wasn't a mistake? That the retreat coordinator did it on purpose? I don't know, Maya admitted, but I like to think the universe was helping us along, giving us the push we needed. Then thank you, universe, Ethan said to the ceiling. Maya snuggled closer. And thank you, Ethan Miller, for only lasting 10 minutes, for breaking your promise, for being exactly who you are. Thank you, Maya Chen, for seeing me, for loving me, for being brave enough to get rid of the pillows. They kissed, soft and sweet, a goodnight kiss that held the promise of countless more to come. As Ethan drifted off to sleep, Maya safe in his arms, he thought about the future stretching ahead of them. The apartment they'd find together, the dining table that seated 8, the dinner parties, and the terrible jokes, and the quiet mornings waking up next to each other. The career challenges they'd navigate as a team, the family gatherings where they'd blend their histories into a shared future. All of it was waiting for them, just beyond this cabin, this moment, this perfect beginning. But for now, he was content to be right here, in a cabin with one bed, with the woman he loved sleeping peacefully in his arms, with snow falling outside and warmth inside, and 3 years of longing finally transformed into forever. The last thought he had before sleep claimed him was that sometimes the best things in life come from broken promises, from risks taken, from admitting the truth you've been hiding for too long. And sometimes all it takes is one night, one bed, and the courage to reach across the pillows and take what your heart has been wanting all along. Sunday morning arrived with clear skies and brilliant sunshine reflecting off the fresh snow. Ethan woke to find Maya already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching him sleep. "Morning," she said softly when she saw his eyes open. "How long have you been awake?" "Not long. I was just," she paused, smiling, "watching you." "Creepy," he teased, pulling her down for a kiss. "Very creepy. Probably should report you." "Please don't. I plan to watch you sleep every morning for the foreseeable future. I'm okay with that." "Good, because I'm not stopping." They took their time getting ready, neither eager to leave the cabin that had become their little sanctuary. As they packed their bags and loaded Ethan's car, Maya kept pausing to look around, memorizing details. "We should come back here," she said, "for an anniversary or something." "Which anniversary?" Ethan asked. "The anniversary of when we got together? Or the anniversary of when we met?" "Both," she decided. "We'll celebrate both, every year." Deal. The drive back to the city was quiet, comfortable, Maya's hand in Ethan's whenever he wasn't shifting gears. They talked about logistics, about whose apartment was closer to work, about how to tell their families, about the forms they'd need to fill out tomorrow. But mostly they just enjoyed being together, the radio playing softly, the mountains gradually giving way to city streets. When Ethan pulled up outside Maya's apartment building, neither of them moved to get out. "I don't want this weekend to end," Maya admitted. "It doesn't have to," Ethan said. "Come home with me. We'll order takeout, watch a movie, fall asleep on my couch. Start getting used to being together in our real lives, not just in a cabin in the mountains. I'd like that." So she did. They picked up Thai food on the way to Ethan's place, and Maya made herself at home in his space, with an ease that suggested she'd always belonged there. She explored his bookshelves, commenting on his taste in novels, teasing him about the collection of travel guides to places he'd never been. "I'm going to go to all these places," he defended. "Someday." "We're going to go to all these places," she corrected. "Together." "Yes." together. They ate dinner curled up on his couch, sharing pad thai and spring rolls, arguing good-naturedly about what to watch. Maya lobbied for a romantic comedy. Ethan pushed for an action movie, and they compromised on a documentary about architecture that satisfied both of them. Halfway through, Maya fell asleep, her head on Ethan's shoulder, her hand still holding his. He stayed awake, watching her more than the documentary, thinking about how natural this felt, how right, how he wanted this every night for the rest of his life. When the documentary ended, he carefully extracted himself and carried her to his bedroom. She mumbled a sleepy protest, but settled immediately when he laid her down and climbed in beside her. "This is your bed," she murmured, not opening her eyes. "Our bed now," he said, pulling her close. "If you want it to be." "I want it to be," she confirmed, already drifting back to sleep. "I want everything to be ours." Monday morning came too quickly. They drove to work together, stopping to pick up Maya's car from her apartment first, making plans to meet for lunch, stealing kisses in the parking garage before heading to their respective desks. Ethan spent the first hour of the workday doing actual work, catching up on emails and reviewing project timelines. But at 9 o'clock sharp, he and Maya met in the hallway and walked together to HR. The disclosure process was surprisingly simple: a form to fill out, a meeting with the HR director to discuss company policy about workplace relationships, assurances that their relationship wouldn't affect their professional judgment or create conflicts of interest. "We appreciate you coming forward immediately," the HR director said. "It shows integrity. And between you and me," she added with a smile, "I had money on you two getting together at the holiday party." "Apparently everyone had money on us," Maya said, shaking her head. "Apparently," the director agreed. "Now get back to work. You're billing clients for this conversation." They left the office hand in hand, both feeling lighter now that it was official, documented, out in the open. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work and stolen glances across the office, of meeting for lunch in the break room, and enduring more teasing from colleagues, of Maya stopping by Ethan's desk with coffee, and Ethan finding excuses to walk past Maya's office. At 5 o'clock, they left together, and it felt momentous somehow. No more pretending they were just colleagues leaving at the same time. No more careful distance in the elevator. No more going to separate cars and separate homes. They went to Ethan's apartment, since it was closer, and Maya had already claimed half his closet space. "This is really happening," she said, hanging up the spare clothes she'd brought from her place. "We're really doing this, moving in together after one weekend. Is it crazy?" "It's probably crazy. But we've known each other for 3 years, Ethan reasoned. We're not exactly strangers rushing into things." "True. And I did promise you a dining table that seats 8, so we're going to need a bigger place anyway." "About that," Ethan said, "I might have already started looking at apartments." "You what?" "Just browsing. Theoretically." He pulled up his phone to show her the real estate listings he'd favorited. "Look at this one. 2 bedrooms, one could be a home office. Lots of natural light for your drafting work. Kitchen bigger than both our current kitchens combined. And," he swiped to the next photo, "dining space that could definitely fit a table for 8. Maya stared at the photos, then at him. "You're serious. Completely serious." "I told you, Maya. I'm all in. I want to build a life with you, and that starts with finding our place. Not yours or mine, but ours." She kissed him, deep and thorough. When she pulled back, her eyes were shining. "Let's go look at it." "Now?" "Why not? It's only 6. We could probably set up a showing." So they did. An hour later, they were walking through the apartment, and Ethan watched Maya's face light up as she explored each room, pointing out where furniture could go, where she could set up her drafting table, where they could put bookshelves. "It's perfect," she said, standing in the empty living room, turning in a slow circle. "It's really perfect." "Should we take it?" She looked at him, her expression serious. "Are you sure? About the apartment? About all of it? About moving in together this fast?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Ethan said. "But Maya, I need you to be sure too. If this is too much, too fast, we can slow down. We can." "I'm sure," she interrupted. "I'm scared and excited and completely overwhelmed. But I'm sure. I don't want to waste any more time. I don't want separate apartments and separate lives when we could have this. Together." "Together," he agreed, pulling her close. "Always together." They put in an application that night, and by Wednesday it was approved. By the following weekend, they were moving boxes, combining households, arguing about whose couch was better and whether they needed 2 sets of dishes. Ethan's parents drove up to help, and Maya's mother surprised them by showing up with home-cooked food and careful approval. By the time the sun set on their moving day, the apartment was organized chaos, boxes everywhere, furniture in wrong places. But it was theirs. They ordered pizza and sat on the floor of their living room, surrounded by their combined lives, exhausted and happy. "To one bed," Maya said, raising her can of soda in a toast. "To broken promises and the best cabin mix-up ever." Ethan clinked his can against hers. "And to 10 minutes. The worst attempt at keeping distance in the history of attempts." They laughed, and then Maya grew serious. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "That we get to do this every day now. Come home to each other. Build a life together. We don't have to say goodbye at the end of the night anymore." "Best part," Ethan agreed, pulling her close. "Though I'm pretty sure the best part is just you. Smooth talker. I mean it. You, here, in our home, in my life, in my heart. That's the best part of everything." 3 months later, they hosted their first dinner party at the table that seated 8. Friends and colleagues filled every seat, laughter and conversation flowing as freely as the wine. Ethan watched Maya across the table, telling a story that had everyone hanging on her words, and felt overwhelming gratitude. For a cabin with 1 bed. For a promise they'd both known they couldn't keep. For only 10 minutes of restraint before 3 years of wanting spilled over into forever. As if feeling his gaze, Maya looked up and smiled. That special smile she reserved just for him. Later, after everyone had gone home and they were cleaning up together, she came up behind him at the sink and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Happy?" she asked. "Happier than I ever thought possible," he admitted. "You?" "Completely, blissfully, overwhelmingly happy," she said. "And it all started with 1 bed. Best bed ever," he agreed, turning to kiss her. "Worth every terrifying, wonderful, perfect moment since." They finished cleaning and went to bed. Their bed, in their apartment, in their life together. And as Ethan held Maya close, listening to her breathing even out into sleep, he thought about how sometimes the best things come from the moments when you stop holding back. When you admit the truth. When you break your promise and reach for what your heart wants. He'd promised not to touch her. He'd lasted 10 minutes. And in breaking that promise, he'd found everything.